Welcome to this week's episode of Everything Went Black. Kill or Be Killed, episode 2 is in store for you guys. Rennie and I discuss Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, one of our favorite Sam Peckinpah films. If you checked out the first episode of this series, you'll know that we're focusing on movies from the 70s, those dark, hard-hitting, gritty genre films. If you're listening to this, no doubt you are aware of the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. We are a proud member, a proud card-carrying member of this organization. Kicking things off every other Monday and on Friday as well, we've got Horror Wolf 666 brought to you by Brandon Legion. Up next on Tuesdays, the greatest extreme music podcast in the land, Jackie Smith's Into the Necrosphere. Wednesday is Double Shot Wednesday. We've got Everything Went Black, as well as Iblis Manifestations. Thursday is also a double shot day. We've got Necromaniacs Horror Podcast, where I return with Mike Scandato and Jeff Kashid. We also have Soul Knocks, brought to you by the Sinister Minister, Carl Hikara. Friday, Mike Scandato's brother, John Draper, and Shaheen give us Spitball Media. Saturday is a day off, so you're on your own. Sunday, however, Carl Hikara returns with Soul Knocks Day 2 for all things dark and macabre. Carl and I are working on our Darkness Weaves collaboration, where we discuss the work of Carl Edward Wagner. If you like the show, by all means, tell your friends about it. Give us a review on Apple or Spotify or whatever. Definitely follow us on social media, that sort of thing. I'm not really that active on social media by design. So I try to get in touch with everyone. I try to respond as best as I can, but it's nothing personal. If it takes me a while to get back to you guys. If you're interested in stepping up your support of the show, check us out on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to bonus material. For $5 a month, you get early access to the regular shows plus all the bonus material. And for $25 a month, you can become a sponsor of the show. Thanks for supporting this new mini-series that we're working on. A lot of you guys seem to be into our exploration of movies from the 70s, which I think unanimously most people consider that decade to be some of the greatest American films made. That's just a totally different sort of approach to making films. And coming out of the 60s, I think that 70s films had a more nihilistic, bleak, and darker aspect to them.
Yeah, the political climate really shows up with these movies coming off the, during the Vietnam War, Watergate.
Exactly. So this week, it's only fitting, I think, that Sam Peckinpah gets explored because controversial figure. He's been accused of all sorts of things in his life. A lot of that is reflected in sort of the brutality of his films.
Absolutely. And when you see interviews with him, it's funny because he always talks about, most of these movies he's never picked. He was just assigned them. He basically flat out associates himself with being a whore. He's like, yeah. But I'm a good one.
But Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia is something that is a very personal film, and I think that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to do the movie is because it in a lot of ways it's it sort of typifies maybe some of his ideas. It's the same way that The Blackout for Abel Ferrara, I feel, is a very personal movie. That movie, you watch The Blackout and you're like, oh, he's the guy in the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not saying Peckinpah is some dude who lives in Mexico and
Well, he was.
Right, you're right, true. But I don't. Maybe he was involved in a caper like this. Who knows, man?
Yeah.
All right, so directed by Sam Peckinpah, who also had a hand in writing the screenplay, along with Gordon Dawson. And it's based on a story from Frank Kowalski and Sam. They both kind of collaborated on it. And the runtime is 112 minutes, which is a long runtime for films from that era, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think, Sam's known to be self-indulgent, so there's some stuff in that flick where you're like, why is this really here? Other than there's some personal meaning behind it.
Yeah. Released August 7th, 1974 in Los Angeles, March 13th, 1975 in Mexico. So it had an LA and Mexico release. It was one of his most low budget films made in Mexico. And it was made on the heels of another failure, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. We got the great James Coburn and Kris Kristofferson in that film. And
Yeah, I love that film.
Dude, me too. These are like my two of my favorite movies by him, man.
Yeah.
And Kristofferson has an appearance in Alfredo Garcia here too.
Yes.
And Peckinpah claims that this is the only film that was released as like wanted it to come out. Like this was like
his
kind
full
of
intent.
Full intent was behind this. And if as of course this was a more or less a commercial and critical failure. Like most people really didn't appreciate his efforts on this film. This was Kowalski hit him up about this idea when Peckinpah was filming another one of his westerns. The Ballad of Cable Hogue, which that's a pretty decent movie. I like that one. But definitely, if I were to rate his films, I think this film as well as the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid film right at the top for me.
Yeah, I'd go Wild Bunch probably.
Yeah,
that's probably my favorite.
So he started pre-production on this film in '73 in Mexico City with pretty much 100% local cast, all hired from the local talent, mostly Mexican people, and that's sort of that thing,
Which caused some controversy with Hollywood, which again, he doesn't care.
Well, I was going to bring that up. The reason why I mentioned that was that, the political element of not, being non-union and using outsiders and, like operating outside of the Hollywood system definitely was, a shadow on this whole production for him.
Yes.
So the movie went into production in '73 and, in an interview in Variety, Peckinpah said, for me, Hollywood no longer exists. It's past history. I've decided to stay in Mexico because I believe I can make my pictures with greater freedom over here, which there you go. And this is a film that creatively was the most satisfying for him. So I think he, on that level, at least accomplished his goal. And the box office was very bleak, and critics savaged his his movie, with the exception of Roger Ebert.
Yeah, of all people.
Yeah, who gave it 4 stars and referred to it as a bizarre masterpiece.
Yeah, of all people. Plus, remember he also liked the Last House on the Left.
Yeah. So it's not completely off brand for him to like this film.
Yeah.
It also, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, also appeared in the 1978 book, The 50 Worst Films of All Time. That's a little extreme, if you ask me.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think it's just the way it's edited or something. The way it's put together, it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like the action scenes, you can't like figure out what's going on exactly. It's pretty chaotic. But it's done in a strange way. Like it's
I
can't even quite describe how without sitting in front of it. Some of the cuts are very strange.
That's interesting you say that, because I think that when people say, I think that the definition of worst films might be different from 78 to now 2025 when we're recording this, because films like now there's like a very unconventional way editing and storytelling's change. There's like that whole era of like ultra realism, which happened, that kind of mumblecore, like meandering plots and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Peckinpah is doing something like that in this film, but maybe back then if you like superimpose this next to other films of the time, it might not have been a great movie, but that's not we don't care about that kind of stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
I think,
And he definitely was not caring about it.
yeah, and in some ways, maybe Alfredo Garcia was ahead of its time, you know, just with that level of freedom, and he had to go outside the system to make that type of film, you know.
True.
So the cast, great cast. We've got the great Warren Oates as Benny, who I'll watch any movie that's got Warren Oates in it, man.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Isela Vega as Alita, the great Robert Weber as Sapinsley. We've got, I'm just going through the major characters here. Emilio Fernandez as El Jefe, which, you know, for those of you who don't speak Spanish, that means the boss. Janine Maldonado as Teresa, El Jefe's daughter. She's not in the film a lot, but she's kind of the whole linchpin of this movie, really.
Yeah, she's the bookends.
Yeah.
For this.
And we've got Kris Kristofferson with a small, almost cameo in this movie as the biker. And that scene is very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's almost like this is like I'm saying, like, why is it there? You know, it's very strange.
Yeah, yeah. And then his sidekick, Donnie Fritz, there's two bikers, and we'll get to that. So yeah. So the movie opens in Mexico, and we see Teresa, the pregnant daughter of El Jefe. And for the first, like, I don't know, 5 minutes of the movie, I think this is taking place in the Old West.
Yes.
You know, the first time you watch this movie, you're like, oh, we're back in like the 1800s, like, you know, after the, you know, American, you know, the war possibly. And, you know, dude's wearing like old school, like cowboy hats, and, you know, it has like a very Western like vibe to it. But then we see that it's actually in the modern times of the 70s. So El Jefe is like some, you know, probably some kind of like crime lord or something, or you know, prominent figure in that part of you know, that in that area. And so he's not happy that his daughter is pregnant, and he wants to find out who the father is. You know, so right off the bat, we get into Peckinpah's patented abuse of women and, you know, all that sort of stuff, where he like brings her in front of him, you know, has someone rip off her clothes, and you know, it's like he either breaking her fingers and kind of torturing her to tell him who the father
all the while she's defiant during this little interrogation until they finally break her arm.
Yeah. You know, and it's got that atmosphere. There's like older ladies in black and like Catholic imagery, and like just all this heavy like Roman Catholic vibe to everything. You know, like repression and like all this. You feel it, you know. And so you know, she's a young girl. She's being basically tortured by her father, and then she relents ultimately and says that Alfredo Garcia is the father, and El Jefe was close to him at one point. There's a point where he says, you know, he was like a son to me, you know. So yeah, and he's someone that was possibly higher up in the organization that he had. So it's like doubly, you know, he feels really betrayed by him that he, you know, had sex with his daughter and father this like quote unquote illegitimate child. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think that it's interesting because heavy Catholicism here,
Yes.
Here, is it that he was the father or that he did it out of wedlock? Like what is your take on that?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely think it's a little bit of both, because it also sounds like they knew later on, they knew like Alfredo Garcia, he's what he is. He's like a playboy. He's like as like the Fredo of the family. You know what I mean? He's banging two hookers at a time. You know, like that kind of thing. Like I think it's known, you know, this guy gets around. So yeah, it's just like that betrayal, and plus the out of wedlock thing for El Jefe.
So this is where we get the iconic title of the film. El Jefe exclaims, "Bring me the head of Alfredo Garcia for $1 million bounty."
Yes.
Right. So right away, immediately, the next scene, there's like motherfuckers are mobilized. There's like
it's like a montage of mobilizing across Mexico to find this
it's
guy.
like horses, horseback, motorcycles, Cadillacs,
Right.
and then there's a flight. We see a plane taking off.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the setting. I mean, the plot of this film is very straightforward. You know what I mean? And it's like but it's not about that. It's not even about like, because we already know who's to blame, right? We know that, and the beauty of this movie is Alfredo Garcia is not even in the film at all.
Yeah.
There's a photograph of him that they've been passing around.
Yep.
Yeah.
And her locket, which is being passed around.
So these gringos show up. It's Sappensley and he's got a crew of other gringos with him, and they're these kind of buttoned down. Like, now let me ask you a question, and this is something that I've been kind of thinking about. Like, do you think that they were like associates of El Jefe?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, or was it just all about money? Or
I think it's money, like a cartel kind of thing. Like, because they have that, who, later on Benny meets up with after he talks to Sappensley and Quill at the bar. He meets the higher ups. And Sappensley and Quill just strike me as being, like the main operators for that organization for the American side.
Right. And I just am trying to, like, ever since I watched that movie, I agree with you. I'm like, yeah, these guys are associates of El Jefe, and he sent his two main soldiers down there to take care of this thing. Yeah. So yeah, I it's interesting because you think $1 million is $1 million, right? Yeah. Right? Especially back then, $1 million is a lot of money, but to like some kind of bigger high-end crime organization, it's almost like I feel like $1 million might not even have been worth dispatching these guys down there unless there was like a more higher level, like strategic element.
Yeah, and there's some connection with that family. It's probably exactly how stuff would come out later with the Iran Contra stuff with
See, that's what I was thinking too.
Getting filtered from the South America and Central America to fund other operations.
And that's what I was thinking too, that Sappensley and Quill are actually somehow connected to the government, the U.S. government. Yeah. Which is on par. That's definitely on point with Peckinpah's dim view of the government and politicians and all that.
Yeah. Flat out calling what was it, Nixon and his cronies apes with guns. Yeah. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So this leads us to, in my opinion, one of the iconic scenes of the film where we meet Benny. He's a ex-military guy, allegedly. Who knows what the truth of what his story is? Who's been living in Mexico for, I think he said for 6 years he's been down there.
Yes.
And playing piano in a bar. And he's also sort of involved in running the bar too.
Right.
Yeah. So these two gringos show up. I think it was two of them. Yeah, they show up at the bar.
Yeah, it's Sappensley and Quill.
Yeah. And they start asking around about, Garcia. They got a picture of him, and, do they, of course, everyone denies knowing who he is.
Yeah.
They ask Benny, who, he identifies them, recognizes them as fellow Americans, as countrymen. So, they sit down at the bar, and so these two prostitutes, they come over to kind of make themselves comfortable. They figured, oh, here's some, some Americans. They got money. Let's see if we can ply our trade with them. And Sappensley like hits her in the face with his elbow. Like he elbows one of them in the face.
And just clocks or knocks her out.
And they just carry her off, and that was it. There's like no, just like that happens all the time down there.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Yeah. And of
Crazy.
course, Benny denies knowing who he is, and so everyone's like denying any knowledge of who Garcia is.
Yes.
However, we know, and it's revealed that everyone in the bar
Knows.
knows who Garcia is.
Yes.
And
Including Benny's girlfriend.
dude, and this is kind of the linchpin of the whole film. Really, this is one of the things. It's like I said, the plot to this movie. There's a guy wanted by the crime family. There's people looking for him. Okay, and but the reality of it, this whole thing is Benny is not. I would say in some ways isn't really like a capable guy when it comes to like that type of thing. Yeah, he was allegedly in the military, but he's just like this like hustler guy, like playing piano, like he knows all these shady people, but he's not like necessarily a killer. You know what I mean?
He's no operator.
Yeah. So, what I thought was funny was like they really underscore the fact that Garcia is like a known, playboy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, they were describing him. Oh, good looking guy. He speaks, Spanish, English, and French. I thought that was really,
that's the best.
It's like this subtle, like, oh, okay, yeah. And that's the thing about the 70s in general, and this film and Peckinpah. There's a lot of this like, real raunchiness to it, which is kind of absent these days, except for like independent, more fringe movies.
Absolutely.
So we meet Benny's girlfriend, quote unquote, who is also this kind of shadowy character, Elita.
Yes.
She sings, she does some work as a maid, you know what I mean? But, she may or may not have taken on turned some tricks here and there.
Most definitely.
Yeah, she does what she got to do. She does what you got to do what you got to do in that world. You know what I mean? So she's like, she, flexible. So it turns out that Garcia was at one point she was claimed to be in love with him.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's that connection, but this is the motivating factor for Benny to take on this thing. Of course, there's money involved.
Yes.
He likes that,
once he goes for that interview.
Yeah. Yeah. So he goes back to the hotel room because Sap and Slee and Quill leave him their car and they tell him where they're staying. They're staying in some, more upscale accommodation in that town. And they kind of give him the whole breakdown. And the deal for him, at least for him, the deal is $10,000 for Garcia's head as as proof that he killed him or that he's dead. Right now, I think this is really funny. Like we know that the actual bounty is $1 million.
$1 million. Yeah.
So it's like, these guys are like, let's take a chance on this bum. Maybe this guy knows something. Maybe he can expedite us getting Garcia, and we'll peel him off 10 grand for that.
Yeah. And to him, it's like, this is a windfall, 10 grand.
Yeah. For $10,000, you can live like a king down there in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, there's a $200 advance on expenses,
which will be all the liquor he needs.
Yeah. So Benny and Alita, they go out on the road together, and they're looking to find out what happened to him, and they learn that Garcia was killed.
Yeah, she gives it up to him.
Yeah, she gives it up.
Yeah.
Now, what's even cooler about how he died is that he died in a drunk driving crash.
Right.
Like not even like through someone murdering him or anything. Like it was just like an accident basically that killed him.
Yep. So
the whole movie has this like real anticlimactic sort of vibe to it. You know what I mean? It's like there's no one's a good guy. there's no heroes, there's no upside to anything really, you know.
The only thing that you could say is a good person in it is Alita out of all of them
Yeah.
when you break it down.
Yeah, Alita's probably
Again,
the only good person and she herself was incredibly flawed, but she is the only good person, really.
yeah, she's like, again, like a moral compass for the character. And
Yeah.
there's that real good scene with the two of them just sitting by the roadside. And that scene's pretty cool, just the way that's shot. And I don't know if it was like a happy accident or what. Like when they start having an argument and they pan to her, like the background's like real hellish looking, and it'll pan back to Benny, and it looks normal, and it's just a weird disconnect.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, man. This film is all these subtle things in it, and you know, some people. That's one of the criticisms of the movie is that I think in some of the bad reviews they were saying how for a movie this long they felt bored by it or something
Yeah.
like that, and I was just like, nah, man. It's like if you it's almost like the plot is secondary to the atmosphere in this film, you know.
Oh,
And
yeah, definitely. And again, like getting back to like, it's like more of Peckinpah's personal thing. Like when Benny's interviewed about doing this job, he just looks like a schmuck, like, you know, up against these like upscale, like business guys. It's kind of like probably the way Peckinpah felt about Hollywood producers. Like, I'm dealing with these jerk offs and I'm just taking on a job, you know, and they just look down on me no matter what I do. And I make them money and they still look down on me.
and also the disparity between what he's getting paid and what they're getting
Yeah,
paid. You know, that's
absolutely.
like the minuscule $10,000 that he was getting paid for this to do this job versus the million that they're taking from
Yeah.
it.
And he
It's
doesn't
like
even know that yet, Benny. You know, it's like,
that's
whereas, you know, Sam knows what the deal is.
that's such an interesting parallel, really.
Yeah.
And you know, Benny, like, it's funny, like, maybe because this is one of the first films I've seen by Sam Peckinpah back in the day. Like, I was associated when I think of Sam Peckinpah, I think of Warren Oates' character Benny.
Yeah.
Like, I think that he looks like him, even though they don't really look alike. You know?
Right.
But another thing to note is Benny has sunglasses on in virtually the
It's like the
entire
whole
film.
movie.
Yeah. He's even sleeping with sunglasses
Yeah.
on that one scene where he's in bed and Alita gets in bed with him. He's wearing sunglasses while he's asleep. There's only like one or two scenes where he takes them off.
Yeah, and he doesn't, and that's not long. He puts them right back on because as it comes up later when he's, you know, damn your eyes to like a couple people. It's like almost it's about himself too.
Yeah. Did Peckinpah have bad vision or something like that?
I just think he made bad choices.
There you go. Yeah.
Bad life choices. Because a lot of pictures you see with him, he's, you know, he looks more like Kristofferson, you know, like burly, like almost like a biker.
Yeah.
You know?
So the scenes that Alita and Benny have together are they're almost sad because
She wants one thing and he wants something else.
yeah, exactly. But also Benny, like, he can't let go of the fact that Garcia was there
With her.
with her. You know what I mean? He just it like haunts him that she was with Garcia, like to this like very you know, toxic degree. You know,
And there's also a thing going on, like you get this element where she might cared for Alfredo more than she actually cares for Benny. And the same thing with Teresa in the beginning. She probably cared for him more than he cared for her, you know?
yeah. So we have this backdrop of men, you know, kind of just like, you know, having women falling in love with them and they're just being indifferent to their affections.
Yeah.
You know? And Benny, on the other hand, though, like, has a little bit more complexity, I think, with that. I think that he wants to be in love with Alita. Like, he wants the good things in life, but he's too fucked up to get there, though.
Yeah, there's everything is in the way of that, where she's just like, you know, it'll be fine if we're just together. That's all that matters. And he's like, no, we need this money. Like,
Yeah. And then, you know, they talk about There's that one scene where she's talking about some place that she's been to that,
Yes.
and you get the sense that she actually never really went there,
Yeah.
and how she's like, I want to go there to this place. It's like beautiful. And he's like, nah, I want to go to new places. I want to go to places we've been to before. And even that is like this thing of like, did she go there with Garcia? I don't want to go any place that she went to with Garcia. It's
Right.
like, and that's something that I think like is relatable to a lot of people in life, to men, I mean,
Yeah.
Peckinpah's a man's man, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's an example of all these characteristics that men have, and the jealousy, the aggression, like that sort of stuff. And it's like, but he also has the things that get overlooked with him are elements to characters like Benny, where he wants good things,
Yeah.
but he's not just this like sea of toxic, acidic, male toxicity or whatever. He does have
Yeah.
like a moral compass.
Yeah. And he does acknowledge those flaws. It's not like he doesn't acknowledge it.
Yeah. So the scene that I found, I think about this scene a lot, is like when the two bikers, Kristofferson and his sidekick, roll up. Like Benny and Alita are, it's evening, early evening. They're around this campfire, they're playing guitar, having a quiet evening. And then Kristofferson and his buddy just roll up, these bikers,
Yeah.
And I found it interesting that I think there was a peace sign on Kristofferson's vest.
Yeah. Peace sign, like toadstools, and then like
Yeah.
a yin and yang on the one shoulder.
So he's this kind of psychedelic, like biker guy,
Yeah.
you know? But that scene is like, this probably in the 70s turned a lot of people off to the movie, I imagine.
Yeah, but even then, like this, like I said, this is the one scene in the movie where I'm like, this is so random. Like, it does. I don't know. It's not my favorite scene in it, but I don't think it's as like over the top as say, like Last House on the Left.
No, definitely not. But like, as far as like, it just is uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it becomes clear that the two bikers, they want to rape Alita.
Right.
They're basically, he's like, oh, let me borrow your woman, or
Yeah,
something
even
like that.
after Benny says, "This is my wife."
Yeah. He's like, well, let me borrow her for a little while. So now this is the thing. It's hard to describe this feeling of the film because, Alita, as we know, as we suspected, and it's pretty clear that, she tries to do other things, but at the heart of the matter, she's probably pretty comfortable with having sex for money or
Yeah,
to get out of situations like this.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
That's what this looks like at first when she's like, Benny's like, "Oh, you guys are on my shit list. I'm gonna fucking kill you," and she's just like, "Just relax." It's like, she's like, "I'll handle this," like almost.
Yeah. So her and Kristofferson go off into the woods, and I think he even says something like, be nice to her or something like that.
Yeah,
So it doesn't play out as a rape at all. Like
no.
at first it starts out where he's kind of rough with her. He like cuts off her shirt, she slaps him a couple times. He slaps her back. And
And
basically
he's kind of embarrassed.
Yeah. And Benny's sitting there with the other guy has a gun on him and playing guitar while they're off doing who knows what,
Yeah.
And the only thing like Kristofferson, his character didn't want, like he probably ultimately he did, but like he was like, it was like this very lonely, like sort of loneliness thing that was going on where he just wanted to kiss her basically and feel taken care of. It seemed like as opposed to like this violent like rape.
Yeah, once she fought back, he's like almost like de-escalated because he
Yeah.
walks off, and then she goes to him.
Yeah. It's just very strange, and
Yeah.
I'm sure people have written papers about that scene, in their women's studies classes and stuff like that. So
It's a weird scene.
yeah, it's a very strange scene. And like you were saying, it's one of those movies that doesn't really advance the plot at all, but it just adds color to the whole movie.
Yeah, very odd. And then the way it plays out is with Benny getting that upper hand on the second biker and then going up and killing Kristofferson as he's seeing this, her Alita with him, and then he kills the second biker.
Yeah. So he gets out. Ultimately, those guys are killed, So, Benny lays out the plan of decapitating Garcia's dead body and to sell the head for money to prove that he's dead, and of course, like Benny is going to try to like downplay the fact that he was already dead when he found him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sure that, it's like,
I didn't kill him. He's already dead.
Yeah. So, of course, she's not into it. To desecrate this guy's body. But it's just such a the reality of that situation. It actually explains why the movie turned out the way it did. If you think about it, he knew Garcia. His woman was like involved with both of them at one point. And it's just like, that's got to like, now this like big crime family wants him dead.
Yeah. The other thing was with that crime family sending out all these like, dudes looking for them. All the times that the green station wagon has passed Benny and Alita by that he doesn't really notice. Like it's almost like a Keystone Cops kind of joke running through the thing with those two Mexican hitmen.
Throughout this, there's actual professionals out there, trying to get Garcia, and that adds a whole other ludicrous element to this thing. That and even the two American dudes are out looking for Garcia too. They just thought like, maybe this guy's onto something. Maybe we can give him 10 grand and he can make our jobs easier.
Yeah, but they had it's kind of like how that whole situation in No Country for Old Men. Everybody's still looking for this guy.
But like the thing is it's funny because that $10,000 is life-changing money to Benny.
Yeah.
To him, he's got all his grandiose plans for like 10 grand,
Yeah. It's crazy how much like you could think like in the 70s that went compared to like now. It's nuts. Economy.
So they take okay, so let me see where we're at here. So they find Garcia's grave.
Yes.
They cut his head off. And
he doesn't cut his head off. He wakes up after those two hitmen found them at the gravesite, remember?
Right. I got that backwards.
Yeah, Benny wakes up.
Yeah, the green station wagon. Yeah, because they're digging the grave at this point. The green station wagon comes up.
They whacks Benny over the head with the shovel, and he wakes up. He wakes up in the grave, and he notices Alita's in there, and she's dead next to him on top of Alfredo's corpse.
And the death of Alita is what pretty much puts him over the edge because with his $10,000 and new life with her, that kind of dashes all of his plans.
Yeah.
So now Benny has to find the head and get revenge on these guys. So the green station wagon crew. And then that's where we have the shootout with the green station wagon guys and that random family. The
family of Alfredo Garcia's family. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's who it was. I didn't even put that. I never put that together. That's who they were.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Alfredo's family.
Oh man, all these years. Okay. Yeah. Well, I learned something today. All right. So there's this shootout, and then around that's also when Sappensley and Quill roll ups. They apparently not. It couldn't have been a coincidence that all three of these
guys converge on. Well, he's killed by this time. He's already killed the two guys in the green station wagon because he stumbles upon them as they were fixing their car.
Right.
And after that's when he grabs Alfredo's head in the bag, and then he gets ambushed by the family, and they're questioning him, why did you do this? And was it for money? And he's like, yeah, it was for money. That he was already dead. That's when he does that. And that's when the two American hitmen pull up they see him being accosted by this family. He's like, they got guns trained on them, and then they act like, oh, we need directions. It's like a total again, like what? Like
that poor rule, man. These two guys in suits will just come out of their car. Hey, excuse me, friend. Do you know how to get to the so far? They kind of he kind of indicates in sort of a code what's going on. Yeah. And then Quill guns the entire family down. Yeah. But then not before getting shot. He takes a round. I found that to be the fact that Sappensley and Quill were such tight friends. They like that. I'm not saying it was odd, but that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's almost like it throws in that gay angle with those two.
Yeah,
the way Quill or the way Sappensley is towards Quill, because remember, Quill, he never even said his name to Benny. He told Benny, he gave him the name of a character in a Treasure Sierra Madre. Tells him his name's Dobbs. And when he's dying, Sappensley's like, oh, Johnny Quill, Johnny, it's like this real sentimental, over the top way.
Yeah. And that's the thing I love about this movie, because there's something that just that was intentional, you know what I mean? It's like this is a movie we're watching, so there's definitely intention behind all these scenes, and it's I think maybe the first time around I didn't catch that, or then over the years I was like, it was are those two guys, were they lovers? Was that what it was all about? It's you never really know. You can go so many different ways.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds you of some of that old film noir stuff where they would code stuff and hide it in plain sight. The people were like, oh, that's what's going on here. Could be that.
So
it's also kind of reminds me of again, getting back to Sam and his political thing with that whole massacre. It's probably a My Lai massacre scene for him. You know what I mean? Because that was another thing that drove Peckinpah nuts. That. Whenever people were like, well, your movies are violent. He's like, yeah, well, it's not as violent as what happened there. Why is this guy not getting, why is he not thrown in jail, and you're bothering me about violence in movies?
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, I wish Peckinpah was alive now, man. It's
he died early too. Well, it's it's crazy.
Yeah, he was definitely his movies aren't overtly political, but there's definitely elements to it that have commentary on the violence and just the darkness of those times.
Yeah,
yeah,
most definitely.
So Benny callously is like, do I get paid? Sappensley is like, you get paid.
Yeah.
Shoots him, point blank. But then Benny also responds. He counters with another shot and dispatches Sappensley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole scene, at this point, Benny's taken around. He lost his woman. He's been through all this traumatic shit, exhumed a body, watched an entire family get massacred.
Yeah.
He's killed people.
Yeah. Now he's going to be driving around with a head in the front seat of his car and carrying conversations with it.
And the thing about, I was saying earlier, is that Benny, he was telling the truth about being in the military. Say he claimed to have been in the army.
Yeah.
He's not a killer, though. That's the thing. If he was in the army,
right,
he probably was in the rear somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the motorcade or something. He doesn't strike me as someone who might have been particularly violent necessarily. And that's why.
Except when he's with his firearms, he's a dead shot. So that makes you think, hey,
well, maybe, but then again, maybe right.
Maybe he was a fucking, a killer.
Yeah. But you don't know that, though. And that's the thing.
Right.
You don't even know if he's bullshitting her at all, bullshitting us about being in the military at all. Because but yeah, he probably would rather have not done any of this stuff.
Right.
But he saw that there was an opening, and the weakness of his character motivated him to do this. Because he's like, oh, I know Garcia.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that the big question I've always had is, having watched the movie countless times over the years, like, I know that Alfredo Garcia is dead, like from the beginning,
Right.
obviously. But the first time around, I didn't know. I thought he would have to go out and murder him. The
Right.
fact that they were friends, but also the fact that Garcia was his current woman was in love with him at one point. Yeah. What do you think would have weighed out differently? Like, do you think that he would have been able to murder him in cold blood and take his head, or do you think that he would have been, or how do you think that would have worked?
That's the good question, because I don't think he would have done it.
Yeah,
I don't think he would have done it. He doesn't seem like he doesn't. Most of his violence came like after she was killed. Like, I don't know if he would have been like the one to be the aggressor.
The only time he killed anyone were the two bikers, and that was like, basically self-defense. They were, who knows what they were going to do? Like, they maybe they were going to murder both of them. You don't know. So that one is like justified. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I go back and forth about that too. It's like,
I kind of get the feeling he wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Or he would have killed them both. One or the other, maybe.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Neither or both. That's what I'm thinking. The more I think about it.
And this is when the movie starts getting real wild, right around
now.
Benny's losing his mind. He's talking to the severed head. When he gets back to his apartment, he puts the head in the shower. And then after that, the other thing too, the very realistic thing is like how that he's driving around with a severed head in the front of his car, and the smell.
Yeah, and he's driving around with his windows up most of the time.
Yeah, and like the flies, and like he had to get ice and stuff like that. So it's like just really interesting,
Yeah. And so, he did get the information of where to go to from Sappensley, right? To go to get the 10 grand. He has to go back to that hotel.
Yeah. So there's he goes back to the hotel with the head, and like some dude is getting his like feet washed by like these two women. And I was like, that was an interesting bit of color too, I thought.
Yeah.
So and he's going to get his $10,000.
Yes.
But now he's like, it's not about the money anymore. He basically tells him,
right.
He's like, Garcia was my friend, and I want to know why, you need to know that. And that's the thing. It's like, we know that Garcia, why they need the head.
He does not.
He doesn't know the whole motivation for any of this stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And he also, blames them for Alita's death. And then he just loses it and starts shooting.
Yeah.
And he finds a business card on the desk, and that's got El Jefe's address on it.
Yes.
That's a little like, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that in this movie. Like, okay, like it's just the forward plot in a weird way,
Yeah.
Here's this.
Maybe he could have tortured someone, or I don't know. Like, but then again, that's might be out of character for him to do that. Yeah. So right about now, the bastard is being baptized.
Yes.
And El Jefe is, he's got his new grandchild
at the hacienda.
Yeah. And they welcome Benny in there because he's got,
Yeah, he showed the guards at the front, hey, I have Alfredo.
Yeah. Now this is interesting because now he gets the entire bounty. If this is the real fucked up part of the movie.
Yeah, he didn't know.
Yeah, he could have been a millionaire, right?
Right.
And instead of a 10,000 heir, by like taking like the head directly to El Jefe, he could have actually $1 million in Mexico. He could have bought like a villa. He could have been like very comfortable for the rest of his life down there, probably.
Yeah.
But of course, Benny's like, he tries to tell him how many people died for this head, including his, Alita. Yeah. And El Jefe is like, all right, take the money. I'm going to
just get the hell out.
You're starting to bum me out a little bit, so you need to get out of here. Just take the money and leave.
Yeah.
Um,
Throw the
and
head to the pigs.
he's going to throw the head to the pigs. That's right. And now and there you go. It's like, that's his friend. It's like,
Yeah.
even though he probably hates him on a certain level, it's like, does he want his head eaten by pigs? I don't know. So, Benny's like, fuck this. And he guns everyone down, basically. The bodyguards, he shoots El Jefe.
He shoots El Jefe at the behest of the daughter.
Right. Yes, that's right.
She sees the whole thing and she's like, kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Teresa shows up at the end, they're coming to the end of the film. And, with the baby, the newborn, freshly baptized son. And, so she gives him the go ahead, like you were saying, to gun down El Jefe. And now we know that it's all over for Benny, man. So he knows it's over. He lived his short, wild life, and he tries to drive away, and they just tear him to pieces, man. They just machine gun him down.
And before that, remember, he gives Teresa that locket of Alfredo, and he's like, you take care of his son, I'll take care of the father.
That's right.
That's when he leaves.
Yeah. So, dude, this movie made quite an impact on me the first time I saw this, like, years ago. And I remember watching it, and I was like, initially, the whole thing that got me was like, I like Westerns, especially Peckinpah's Westerns. I'm a big fan of that genre of film and books too. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, Western. But then you see a guy in a car. I'm like, oh shit, it's just like taking place in modern times. But this is literally one of the bleakest movies I've ever seen in my entire life, honestly.
Oh yeah, the way it ends.
Yeah, the ending and like
it's just on gunfire.
Yeah, like nothing is solved, no one's redeemed. Like it's just this like profane like exploration of darkness, and it's so fucking good, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a sign of that. Like I said, there's all that political intrigue wrapped up into it. It's a lot of like personal stuff with Peckinpah himself. He probably sees a lot of himself in Benny. Like Benny is him. He's this loser taking on some job, for peanuts compared to like what he's going to earn out of somebody else. And he's just, he's at the end of his rope.
And then there's also like we were talking about, the kind of commentary on Hollywood and the government and that sort of stuff. And then just frailty, like male, weird frailties and stuff like that, Yeah,
it's funny because this is like this was after Straw Dogs, right? I can't remember the timeline. Is it before or after Straw Dogs? This.
Let me look real quick.
I think it's after
Straw Dogs. That's right. They remade this film. So yeah, Straw Dogs. Yeah. Straw Dogs came out in 1971, so this is after Straw Dogs.
So I think it's definitely a continuation of that male-female relationship, and take it to even more extremes.
There's always a little bit of that in Sam's movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Even like The Getaway has a little bit of stuff like that in there too.
That was on the other night too. I love that movie.
God, it's fucking awesome, man. I'll talk about all of his films, honestly. Maybe that's something we should do. Maybe this should be the Sam Peckinpah, Yeah, he's great, man. And I think I saw this movie, and then maybe I saw Abel Ferrara's Blackout film. Later. Definitely later.
Yeah.
And I something about the Blackout and makes it's reminiscent in a lot of ways of like what types of films that Peckinpah makes. And even though they're completely different, like it's not like it's a Western or anything, but the way that all these horrible things happen and the characters are so flawed, but yet you still find some kind of sympathy for them, like in this film, obviously Warren Oates' character, incredibly flawed, shady as all hell, but you sympathize with him, even though he is motivated by complicated things.
Right.
Similarly, in The Blackout, we've got Matthew Modine's character, who's obviously, a thinly veiled stand-in for Abel Ferrara. And it's like, he does really bad things in that film, but there's a sympathetic element to him, though. He's like these broken down, ruined people,
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a good one, man. I excited about continuing on this path that we got here.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of stuff to get to, as we've talked about before.
Yeah. So we're going to try to do these things every now and then, and stay tuned. We'll figure out what the next one's going to be. And thanks for listening, everyone.